All right. Is my mic on now? All right, perfect. Well, this meeting of the SREC Resolutions Committee is now called to order. And I think in accordance with the original plan, Pastor Dale Inman, could you please lead us in a prayer?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Would you bow with me, please? Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for the leadership that we have in the Republican Party. Father, I do ask that many of us have different ideas, different opinions, and that sometimes we get caught up with those. Father, if I've added any hostilities to the group, I apologize to them, and I apologize to you. Forgive me. Father, be with us today as we discuss these matters. Give us wisdom, give us discernment, help us have a heart of love one for another. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
Thank you. And would you now join me in the pledge to the American flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now the Texas flag. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one indivisible. All right. And so at this time, would every committee member who is here please stand up? Because we're going to divide into subcommittees. We're going to have two subcommittees. One of them is going to deal with some of the motions to censure that we've received from counties and look through those. And then one of them is going to deal with our preferences on constitutional amendments. And so, and preparing a resolution that kind of states our preferences for those to recommend in the November 2023 election. So for the motions to censure subcommittee, I'd like for that to be me, Donnie Weisenbaker, Chris Bird, Rolando Garcia, and Andy Yeller. And then for the constitutional amendment subcommittee, could that be David Covey, Dan Tully, Gwen Withrow, and Naomi Narvaez? And I don't believe I've missed anybody, correct? All right, and we will be in subcommittees for 25 minutes, and then we will come back together to go over committee reports. And the preference for the Constitutional Amendment Subcommittee is not that we take a position on every single ballot proposition. We want to determine what the 2 or 3 or more, and depending on what you decide, but the most important ballot propositions are to the Republican Party so that we can make a strong recommendation for our voters in November. And with that, the motions to censure subcommittee will meet at that table, and the constitutional amendment subcommittee will meet at this table. And Virgil. Yes. Oh yeah, Bird is on censure, and then you're helping with amendments.
As far as the
you can spectate either of the subcommittees. It's typically what happens anyway, or just hold tight. But really, the purpose of doing this is so that we can deal with the most I think highest difficulty subjects in smaller groups, and then come together as a committee and then deal with the other resolutions. So we will get to all of the business that's before us, but we want to kind of have strong recommendations on these first. Censure's over there.
well, we have to have together again.
All right. All right, this meeting of the Resolutions Committee is called back to order with my very loud gavel. We've been in order this whole time. All right, I'm going to start with a report from the subcommittee discussing censures. So we looked at censures for 3 different state representatives that were sent to us from the counties. We looked at Dade Phelan, John Kemple, and Andrew Murr. And ultimately what the subcommittee is recommending, and we'll take votes on one by one. I'll do Phelan last so that Virgil has time to put it in the live doc. The first recommendation we had, which will require no action from the committee, is to defer action on the John Kemple resolution. We did give guidance to Guadalupe County to include more information. If there would still be time to go back and reconsider it on their end, but we need more information about how the votes that are identified in the resolution connect to the priorities or platform planks. The second recommendation we had from the subcommittee, which we'll now take a vote on as a full committee, was to move forward with a resolution for a Rule 44 censure of Andrew Murr. So there were 5 grounds identified in the resolution for that, and we're, as a subcommittee, we recommended concurrence with 3 of them. So the 3 grounds for, which would be the 3 required items for Rule 44 censure, were the actions that he took as committee chair in harming the constitutional rights of Attorney General Ken Paxton, his vote for the Herrero Amendment, which was a budget amendment designed to attack school choice, which is one of our legislative priorities, and then a recorded no vote on SJR 35, which was a constitutional amendment that would have made it so that only citizens can vote in our elections. He actually missed that vote on the floor because of his activities with the investigating committee. And then when he came back, he had his vote recorded as a no vote on that amendment, making him the only Republican who voted no. And actually the only representative, because all of the Democrats voted present, which is effectively a no vote. But because it's a constitutional amendment and you have to have 100 ayes to pass one, which they had 88. But he voted against that, and that's a violation of our legislative priority to secure elections. So with that, I'll now put it before the full committee, and this would not be for action on the floor in September. It would be at the following regularly scheduled SREC meeting, which I believe is in December. Will all committee members, yes. Yes, we will not bring it to the floor. We will not bring it to the floor tomorrow because we would not be able to because of notice requirements. We would bring it to the floor in the following SREC meeting.
So a yes vote brings it to the floor in December.
Yes.
No vote means it's it.
Mr. Chairman, we could take it up to our chairman to have an emergency meeting for that. Do it sooner.
That would be possible, yes.
But nothing's going to happen. We don't do that.
Correct. So the recommendation is to concur with, this will probably be enough for the minutes, to concur with 3 charges on the Medina County censure of Andrew Murr. Yeah, that's a good reminder. Thank you. Yeah, and after Mr. Tully is done speaking, I'll come to you.
My question is, this thing on? Okay. My question is that of the 3 charges you did, Are they based on his votes or are they based on his position as chair?
So
Because his position as chair should not be up for discussion. It should be what came out of the committee or that he voted on as a representative.
So as we were discussing the various motions to censure, the subcommittee, where the subcommittee kind of landed, and there was some division on this point, was that the vote for impeachment alone did not constitute a censurable charge, and some of the members disagreed with that opinion, but that was the majority. And however, his actions as chair went above and beyond a vote and actually did, through his actions, he violated the constitutional rights of the Attorney General. So in Rule 44, it doesn't mandate that you only look at votes, like things like for instance, appointments that the speaker has made. Yeah, those are actions. They're not votes, they're actions. And so in this case, we have a recorded vote, which isn't a real vote because he was out of the room. It was what he recorded in the journal as his vote, although even being out of the room still counted as a no vote. That was for SGAR 35. We do have a vote in favor of the Herrero Amendment, and that's a definite vote there. And then there is the totality of his actions on the Ken Paxton impeachment, which combined constitute one charge.
So what you're saying is that no matter what role they have within the legislature, that Rule 44 applies to them? I don't think you can really go that far.
It applies to what they do in the legislature. If you take on a chair position and you're using that chair position to oppose the legislative priorities or oppose the principles, then that is an action. So I mean, I think a fair way to look at it is if you take on leadership, you also take on increased responsibility. And so you were supposed to be using that leadership position to advance the Republican Party, not to counteract the Republican Party. And so I think it is fair game. But anyway, I wanted to let Mr. Weisenbaker speak. Yeah.
Mr. Chair, I've got a point of order.
Sure.
When I have a problem with this saying a totality of his actions, when it's my understanding that he followed the House rules, okay? I hadn't had anybody show me one rule yet that he didn't follow. And where I think he could have had a much more open and honest dialogue and for the impeachment. But are we going to start saying that that it rises to a Rule 44 censurable action because he followed the rules and he made them work the way that he wanted them to work rather than the way we wanted them to work? And my question is that's what I'm asking.
So I think the answer there would be that the House rules are they are mechanisms for guiding how the House does its business. They don't speak to constitutionality or right and wrong, right? Like you could, a representative could, and I'm sure some have in the past, introduce a bill that requires every police officer in the state to start seizing guns from people, right? They would be within House rules if they introduced it. They would be within House rules if they got it voted on and passed. Of course, the first court it got in front of would strike it down, but House rules don't stop you from violating people's constitutional rights. And actually, I mean, Ms. Hooper, am I speaking to this correctly? Sorry to put you on the spot, but
Yes, but I think I disagree. I don't know why we're limited to the House rules, because what we have seen is on a Wednesday morning, the General Investigating Committee didn't take up Frederick Frazier, who's under indictment, Shalonda Jones, whose staff all basically resigned with a letter. They had 4 lawyers and 2 investigators, all from Harris County, who I work with all of them at the DA's office,
just to kind
recite
of
double hearsay.
Yeah, just to kind of jump in here, I think I just kind of wanted to make sure that to Mr. Weisenbaker's point, in a more limited sense, the fact that something is legal under House rules doesn't mean it's necessarily the right thing to do. Like the fact that he was able to do what he did under the House rules doesn't mean that it wasn't a violation of General Paxton's constitutional rights.
Yeah, and what I'm saying is, I don't know that I agree that it was legal under House rules, and it
Okay.
certainly wasn't legal under the law of the state of Texas and our Constitution. So that's my point.
Okay, yeah, that answers the point. Thank you. Mr. Byrd.
I guess to echo that, Mr. Chair, I am not aware of a specific body of technical rules that have been passed by the House that apply to impeachment only. In fact, I think the absence of that is what Dan Patrick was speaking about last Saturday, which was just a week ago today or tomorrow. So I'm not going to concede, with all due respect, that he followed any rules. I'm not going to concede that he followed all the House rules. I'm not aware of any. There was never an argument about that any time during the entire trial or leading up to that back in May. That never existed. I don't know where this notion comes from, but I reject it completely. As to what Rachel said, I completely agree. The Constitution wasn't followed. It's been made abundantly clear. The government code, where it does speak to impeachment, also wasn't followed. So this notion that not existing House rules somehow trump statute and the Constitution, I reject completely.
Thank you. All right, is there any further discussion on this item?
Yep, Mr. Chairman, I do have one thing. I'm going to point out, Rule 44 is very clear. 3 or more actions taken during the current biennium in opposition to the core principles of the Republican Party of Texas defined in the preamble of the party platform as described in Rule 43A, and it also includes legislative priorities. In no time do we talk about violating rules, not violating rules. We talk about actions. Even if he followed the rules and his actions violated our core principles or violated our legislative priorities, then it is a censurable action.
Thank you. Ms. Narvaez.
Mr. Chairman, parliamentary inquiry.
Yes.
I'd like to know if it is possible to suspend part of the rule requiring notice for censure.
Our parliamentarian could speak to that. Okay. Yeah. I thought the answer was no, and I think we should operate under the assumption that the answer is no.
But-
I think Rule 44 has a strong notice requirement, and the convention put it there for a reason.
But you're not sure?
Yeah, he is shaking his head. You're shaking your head. Yeah, I believe that's a no. Yeah, I mean you would be suspending the notice requirement under Rule 44. I don't think that's not something
Okay.
we're gonna do. Yes. All right. Are there any other committee members who wish to speak to this issue? All right. Hearing none, is there Did we have a second on the, I went ahead and made the motion because it's going to, I guess since it's a subcommittee report, it doesn't require a second. So all in favor of moving forward with these 3 charges on Representative Murr, say aye. All opposed, say nay. All right. What can we get a count on that? It's, I know it was 2 nays. Yeah. All of the ayes, will you raise hands? All right, that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'll be number 6. Oh, 7. Okay, so 7-2. All right. The last item from this subcommittee was regarding Speaker Phelan. During the video call meeting that we had last month, we decided not to move forward with a censure, to defer action on a censure for Dade Phelan. And the circumstances that led to that and the resolution from Orange County have not changed, and so that is being sustained. However, we did recommend a resolution that Virgil can put on the screen. Yeah, I mean, we're not acting. Okay, right. So this resolution, if you scroll up a little bit, the title kind of covers the content. It is a resolution asking Speaker Dade Phelan to resign as Speaker or for the House to vacate the chair. And so this goes into a lot of the issues that have kind of already been had with Dade Phelan, voting for the impeachment of Attorney General Ken Paxton, appointing Democrat chairs, ignoring or actively undermining several GOP priorities during the regular session, failing to prioritize legislation to secure our borders and elections. And so we say, whereas new leadership is needed in the House of Representatives for the upcoming special session and potential subsequent special sessions to ensure that conservative priorities are achieved and members are no longer pressured to act and vote contrary to the platform, principles, and priorities of the party they represent and its voters. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Republican Party of Texas calls on Speaker Dade Phelan to step down from his leadership role as Speaker of the Texas House of Representatives and allow a new Speaker to be elected after a caucus vote in accordance with the Republican Party of Texas platform. And be it further resolved that should Speaker Dade Phelan fail to step down from the Speaker chair for this upcoming session, that should say special session, the Republican representative should vote to vacate the chair and allow for a new Speaker who is pledged to honor and support the priorities and principles of the Republican Party to be elected. So with that, that is the recommendation from the subcommittee. Is there any discussion? Nobody. All right. Well, I guess we'll move into a vote. All committee members in favor of passing this resolution to the full SREC, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. And that passes unanimously. Do you want to make an amendment on the floor of the SREC? Because we've already passed it out of committee. Yes. So this originated as a resolution from Bexar County, but we did make significant amendments to it. And so that concludes the subcommittee regarding the motions to censure. And is there anyone who can speak on behalf of the subcommittee to consider constitutional amendments? All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And while I didn't have a vote on the subcommittee, I did help to craft the language with the consensus of the group sitting here. I want to thank David Covey for kind of co-chairing the committee. We worked on kind of half and half of it each. So the subcommittee is recommending that the SREC take a position supporting Proposition 4. And I don't need to read this, do I? Just So we're confirming that total, the 24.3 with the source. If we can get that, we'll amend that to have that if that's okay with y'all. And then if you scroll down, we have 2 citations to platform planks, and then we using kind of boilerplate language, ask the voters to support Prop 4, and at the very end, we also have the RPT devote resources to getting that message out. So that's the work of the subcommittee, and I want to thank them for their assistance.
Thank you, Virgil, and thank you, subcommittee members, for going through the constitutional amendments and finding the one that it really is worth us getting behind. And just to kind of expand on Proposition 4 is going to be the increase of the homestead exemption to $100,000 that was fought for as part of our property tax reform. So very important to pass, very big deal for our legislature. Is there any further discussion on this resolution? All right, I don't hear any, so we'll move into a vote. All in favor of passing this to the floor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. All right, that passes unanimously. And now we will go into the fun part of the meeting that keeps Virgil very busy. That is all the other resolutions. So let me have just a sec to... Yeah, that worked. All right, can people hear me? Perfect. Podcast is working. All right. I just need to get like a ring camera and okay. So basically what I'll do is I'm going to go through the rest of the resolutions in the meeting file one by one. There are not many, but not everyone requires action. So I'm going to ask as we get to each one whether somebody wants to take that up for discussion, and then we'll discuss it as a committee. If there's a motion, then we'll discuss it. Then I'll ask for a second. If there's not a second, then we'll move on to the next one. So the first one is from Naomi Narvaez. It is hand counting paper ballots. Do you want to move to take that up? Do you want to move to take it up? Oh, okay. Okay. Do you want to make a motion to take it up? Okay. Election day voting, same thing? Okay. Vaccine mandate bill in special session. So this one I think was sent to me by you, but it's regarding the asking for Greg Abbott to convene a special session. Is there a motion to take that up? All right. The Texit resolution from Angelina County. Does someone want to take that up? Here. Okay, a motion has been made to take up the Texit resolution. Is there a second? All right, seconded by Gwen Withrow. So, Virgil, you have access to that in the meeting file, right? All right, it is the Angelina County Texit resolution. And we don't have a Word document version of this one. Yeah, so we'll copy paste it into the Google Doc and then do our best. All right, and those of you with computers can probably follow along, but I'll go ahead and read the be it resolved. Be it resolved that the Republican Party of Angelina County calls for the Texas legislature, along with the governor, to act immediately on planks 33 and 225 of the 2022 Texas Republican platform and pass legislation immediately requiring a referendum in the next general election for the people of Texas to determine whether or not the state of Texas should reassert its status as an independent nation, Be it further resolved that the Republican Party of Angelina County calls for the SREC to place the question of whether or not the state of Texas should reassert its status as an independent nation on the next primary election ballot. And be it further resolved that if a majority of voters in the primary answer the aforementioned ballot question in the affirmative, the Republican Party of Angelina County calls for RPT at its next regular convention to designate legislation calling for a full statewide vote asking the same question as an official legislative priority. All right. Is there, while Virgil's working on getting it on screen, is there any discussion about this resolution? Yeah, yes, you need to go to the mic. Yeah, well, we got to get our steps in. It's...
All right, can everyone hear me? Okay. I have opposed this plank, the platform plank, since it came up and I was on the platform committee. I would oppose the referendum. I would oppose putting it on the primary ballot. As I have said over and over again, Democrats are the party of secession, Republicans are not. I feel like we're being led by a very tiny but motivated group into something that has very little broad public support. People are worried about indoctrination in their schools, about property taxes, about the open border. I mean, normal people are not talking about this. And if we ever got out of our little political bubbles, we would see that. And there's no chance that people would actually vote to secede. But what concerns me is that even putting it on the ballot, putting it on the primary ballot, tars the Republican Party as the party of secession. Our party is completely out of touch with real people. I mean, for those of you who go block walking, who've knocked on doors last November, how many people brought up Texas or secession? This is an online movement, okay? Now, they're very motivated and they're very passionate. And, it's hard to object to anything they say about federal overreach because everything they say about federal overreach is absolutely correct. But it's just politically tone deaf. And it would be so damaging for our party to have this on our primary ballot next year, because that is all the Democrats will talk about. And you know what? Next year, in Harris County, you all know what's going on in Harris County. We have Democrat judges who are releasing people with multiple felony bonds. And I'm going to be block walking, knocking on doors of independent voters, okay? Independent voters who are worried about crime. But you know what? Instead, they're going to be asking about, why does the Republican Party support secession? For Pete's sake, let's not do this.
Is there any further discussion? Ms. Narvaez?
Yes, Naomi Narvaez, SD 25. Well, I can give one reason, the invasion at the border. And I think that Texans are tired of the federal government and what they're doing. They're way out of line. It's just grown too big. And I think that the voice of the grassroots should be heard from censure and this. So I support it.
All right, Vice Chair Byrd.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Plank 33 of our current platform reads, under state sovereignty, pursuant to Article 1, Section 1 of the Texas Constitution, the federal government has impaired our right of local self-government. Therefore, federally mandated legislation that infringes upon the 10th Amendment rights of Texas shall be ignored, shall be ignored, opposed, refused, and nullified. Texas retains the right to secede from the United States, and the Texas legislature should be called upon to pass a referendum consistent thereto. The other reference is Plank 225, Texas Independence. We urge the Texas legislature to pass a bill in the next session requiring a referendum in the 2023 general election for the people of Texas to determine whether or not the state of Texas should reassert its status as an independent nation. I think the way that this resolution is being interpreted is wrong. The resolution doesn't say Texas shall succeed. It is Texas shall reassert its own state sovereignty, to have the right to choose its future. To suggest that it doesn't is really nonsensical. But then that gets back to another conversation years ago. I think the purpose of all of this is to continue to lay in front of the people's minds and as they think and ponder what is going on in our world affairs, our state affairs, what in fact can we do? I'm not suggesting that this would lead, and I don't believe anybody is, to immediate secession. To go down that road would take years and years of a well-defined process, and everybody knows that. But that process cannot even be entertained unless the people have the opportunity at the ballot to speak. And if they don't, then we'll know. I disagree personally. I believe this is going to be a very high measure that's drawing a lot of support. And as to block walking, I do my own share of block walking. And I do get talked about this issue a lot. It is on the people's mind. And with all the things happening to Texas these days, it is more increasingly on people's minds. So I'm very much in favor. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? All right. I'll speak to this a little bit myself. I think what resolutions like this do sometimes is they try and this is kind of a have our cake and eat it too type thing. It's where the resolution is called the Texit resolution, which implies secession of Texas from the U.S. And I mean, that's all it can apply. Just like Brexit was the secession of the UK from the EU. But that was a very different contractual obligation that they were exiting out of. And so we can't, on one hand, say, we're passing a Texit resolution, we think this is a great idea, and then on the other hand say, oh, we're really just asking for a referendum about state sovereignty. It's like we're going to go advocate for Texit, and then as soon as we get called on it, we say, oh, no, that's not what we were advocating. And so if this is something people really want, then don't ask for referendums, don't ask for ballot questions, go out and advocate for it and try and convince people. And build an actual grassroots movement. But until you do that, but these kinds of have your cake and eat it too resolutions, I don't think are a great idea. And it's actually it's even a little bit questionable to me whether this would be in order, because it's asking the convention to do something. It's asking, it's a resolution that would be asking the committee to do something. I mean, the moving pieces on this are kind of strange too. So I'm kind of against it for both of those reasons, even not really speaking to the core issue. If you want something, then ask for it. But if you're too afraid to advocate for what it is you really believe, and you're hiding behind, oh, we're really just asking for a referendum, oh, we're really just asking for increased sovereignty, then maybe you understand there's a political problem with what you're asking for. So for that reason, I am against this resolution. But is there any further commentary, or do we want to move into a vote? All right, hearing none. All in favor of passing the text of the resolution to the floor for the SREC, say aye. All right. All opposed, say nay. Nay. All right. The nays have it. Yes, we can. Okay. So all in favor of the resolution, raise your hands. All right, that is 4. All opposed, raise your hands. That is 5. All right, so the next resolution is from Madison County. This is also in support of a special session to consider a law prohibiting COVID vaccine mandate. Does someone want to make a motion to take that up? All right, I'm not hearing any. All right, the next resolution was sent to us by an activist named James Paynato. It is the Defend the Guard support for Defend the Guard legislation resolution about defending the Texas National Guard. Is there any interest in bringing that up? Anyone want to make a motion on that? All right, I'm not hearing any, so we'll move on. Next is supporting a return to excellence in voting and elections. This is from Andy Yeller. Do you want to make a motion to take this up?
Yes.
All right, that motion has been made. It has been seconded by Gwen Withrow. So let's pull it up on screen. It is supporting a return to excellence in voting and elections. I promise we're getting close to the end. Yeah. Yes, please do.
While he's pulling that up, I'm going to go ahead and speak to it to save some time because I know we're over time. Basically, this resolution, we curated, Debbie Duke and I, the chair of the Election Integrity Committee, curated this from the Republican National Committee, their support in returning to excellence in voting and elections. We took this resolution, we made some changes to it, updated it to what we felt would better fit for Texas, and put this together. And I'm just going to move that we adopt this resolution because it does get us what we're looking for. It opens up for counties to be able to do hand-counted paper ballots if they so desire. It also looks at equipment issues and the whole piece with registration. So there's a lot to it, but it does get us where we wanted to move forward with in the Election Integrity Committee. So
thank you. And Virgil, could you scroll down to the actual resolve clauses? Yeah, there are a lot, but this resolution is available for everybody to read in the meeting file. Is there any further discussion on this resolution? All right, hearing none, all in favor of passing this to the floor for a vote, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. That passes unanimously. All right, the next one I had on here, and I'm not going to call for a vote on this, but it was a resolution basically calling for us to decide in advance a topic for our ballot questions. And so I don't want to do that as a resolution, but I do to go to the floor for a vote, but I do want us to have that discussion as a committee. And I've talked with several committee members about this already and other people within the SREC. We are going to have the duty between now and December to develop ballot questions for the primary ballot. And so there have been different strategies for that in years past. There have been some SRECs that have just put questions on the ballot that are kind of, designed to get 100% support and sort of rally all the voters. There are others that are like the school choice ballot question that was designed, I think, to kind of reveal a lot of support for something that the voters widely supported, but we weren't seeing from our legislature. And so going into next year and the upcoming primaries, the idea I wanted to bring forward to the committee and kind of get your thoughts about was, instead of having a giant hodgepodge of questions on a lot of different topics, instead zeroing in on one topic that I think we all feel needs a lot of attention, and that is border security and immigration. So between now and December, we would have a couple of Zoom calls, obviously solicit feedback from the entire SREC, but the ultimate goal would be to have a question list for the ballot that deals basically entirely with questions regarding actions that we feel need to be taken on border security and immigration. Does anyone have any thoughts about that, disagreements, or anything like that?
We've had plenty of those. We already know where our stand. And everyone knows our political vote that we stand on this issue. And given the kind of opinion that this is crisis. And there are so many aspects of not just border security, but in enforcing all of that I think we can tackle it separately.
Thanks. Any other thoughts or feedback? Sure. If you can, yeah.
David Covey, SD3. And if you haven't heard, Dave Phelan already fixed the border. He sent a mailer out that said so. No, I think this is the right approach. I think we need to focus on this. It's not fixed, and I think this needs to be a priority. It definitely is for the voters, not only in my district, but I assume in everyone else's district. And it puts our state at risk. And so this is a huge issue that we need to focus on, and we need to take action. So.
Thank you. Vice Chair Byrd.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm in favor of your suggestion. I just had a clarification, and it is there is at least one measure that comes to my mind, that being the gold and silver legal tender measure that I personally think is worthy of consideration for that. This mechanism that you're referring to, would there be a kind of a third area, kind of a catch-all for all other matters, or how would we address other matters outside of border and
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think what we're trying to do is, instead of just going blind into the next few months, kind of agree on a direction while we've got everybody in the same room. Because what I don't want to have happen is I don't want to have everybody in the SREC kind of fighting each other like crabs in a bucket, trying to get their question on the list or get somebody else's question off the list. And my perception is that is what has happened in years past. And so the idea would be that we as a committee kind of agree to move in the direction of border security and immigration and really make that the focus. It doesn't necessarily have to be to the exclusion of everything else, but I think our strong preference would be to solicit questions having to do with that topic.
If I could make one suggestion, if we were to change it from border security to state sovereignty, then I think there'd be room for the bill I just mentioned. State sovereignty is a little bit broader. Obviously, it would include anything border related and then perhaps other matters.
Yeah, I think I like the idea of really identifying border and immigration as kind of like narrowing it down to that point. But yeah, I mean, it's an open discussion. So, yeah. That mic is closer. You have to dodge more chairs. But
The problem with, okay, if everything is a priority, then nothing is a priority. And that's been this thing where we just throw every question we can think of onto the primary ballot. I mean, we all say, and I hope we all believe, that the border is an existential crisis. Okay? And it's not something that can be solved 5 years from now or 10 years from now. I mean, look, I'll just say it. The Democrats are importing voters. They may already those who have the illegals who have entered Texas since Biden became president, if they are not deported, they would turn Texas blue. That's to say nothing of the ones that keep on coming every day. So I think we would all agree that that is an existential threat to Texas. And, there's a million other issues and, property tax. We need to get to that. But if we don't fix the border and if we don't do it within 12 to 24 months, it'll be too late because the Democrats would have already gotten all their voters in. And then they'll give them amnesty. And some Republicans will go along with that. So I feel like this, by focusing all our ballot questions on just this issue, this is saying, this is making a statement as a party that, Greg Abbott's little toys that he set up in the river, that's not enough. We need to close the border now. We need to deport illegal aliens now. The state has to do that. Deport people now. And I think this is a powerful message. So.
Thank you. So is there any further discussion, or do we want to move into some kind of vote? All right, so I will make the motion this way, and I guess we can. So the motion is just to let the minutes of the meeting show that the consensus of the resolutions committee is that we want our list of questions to focus on border security and immigration. I said focus. So, all right, all in favor, say aye. All opposed, say nay. All right, that passes unanimously, and we have one left. And so the last resolution is in the Ken Paxton folder. And so I wrote a template here. I used the Harris County resolution on the impeachment as kind of a starting point, but that one was really written. Basically, every resolution we've gotten on this was written before the acquittal, and so I thought it was kind of important that we pass a resolution recognizing what the Senate did, and then also addressing the lieutenant governor's proposals for how to improve that process going forward. And so, if you use the one titled "Template Thanking the Senate for Acquittal," that's the one I'd like to put up. Well, I'll just read through it as soon as we get it up there. Here we're just friends. We're yeah.
Things do take time.
Yeah, we're just as online as the state convention, but okay. So I'll just read through this. Whereas Texas Attorney General Warren Kenneth Paxton Jr. was impeached by the Texas House of Representatives. A lot of this is from our earlier resolution and from the Harris County resolution. Whereas no testimony was taken in the House, and Attorney General Paxton was not allowed to speak to the House or to offer any rebuttal evidence or testimony despite his offer to do so, which was refused. And whereas the impeachment occurred under illegal circumstances, we're covering ground that we already covered in previous resolutions here. This is just explanatory. Whereas due process and the rule of law are the very foundation of our republic and necessary to the proper functioning of a free society, without which we become nothing more than a banana republic. That's from last meeting's resolution and the Harris County resolution. So people really like this banana republic language. Whereas the Texas Senate voted to acquit Attorney General Ken Paxton on all 16 charges that were heard at its trial, therefore be it resolved that the Republican Party of Texas is grateful to the Texas Senate for rejecting the politically motivated impeachment of Attorney General Paxton by the Texas House of Representatives that failed to satisfy due process, to comply with applicable Texas law, and to adhere to precedent. And be it further resolved that the Republican Party of Texas agrees with Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick's call for reform to the impeachment process, specifically to require sworn testimony in House impeachment hearings and to end the practice of removal of the impeached officeholder from office until a trial has taken place, and encourages Governor Greg Abbott to call a special session for that purpose or to add this as a charge to an existing special session. All right, I need to drink some water after that. So, is there any debate or possible language changes that you would like to see in this resolution? Well, I mean, I think we asked for the Senate to reject the charges at the last meeting, and I've become a believer, and not everybody in the party is with me on this, in my mind, unfortunately. But I think we spend a lot of time criticizing people for doing things we think are wrong. I think we should also spend time thanking people in the legislature when they do things that are right. And I think we all agree that the Senate did the right thing. They considered the charges, they heard all of the evidence, and what we found was that the evidence was not nearly as strong as as the public was led to believe. And so the Senate then did the right thing in acquitting on all charges. And so this resolution would thank them for doing that and support the Lieutenant Governor's call for reform. Vice Chair Byrd.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I applaud the effort here and echo the sentiments. I do agree personally that since back in May, I believe it was, our body as a whole did pass a well-considered measure condemning the impeachment. There was a lot of time and effort spent into that, and I appreciate the restatement of that. And I also think for those reasons and the outcome and what we saw unfold as far as a very arduous, laborious, and in some cases very painful 2 weeks that ensued, that the Senate did endure through all of that to a constitutional end. And they didn't want to do it. They didn't want to be there. At the end of the day, there was an acquittal in favor of our Constitution. There was an acquittal in favor of due process, the rule of law, the presumption of innocence, the evidentiary standard beyond a reasonable doubt, as opposed to what Representative Murr suggested in his closing argument. What else could it be? Nothing else makes sense. So we had standing in the way of that train of impeachment that hit the Senate pretty hard with all the media and everything else. Ken Paxton was already convicted before this trial began. But those senators stood hard and fast, and they studied the evidence. I think it was 1,600 pages of it, if not more. They deliberated a lot of time. The hours were very lengthy, in some cases 12 hours a day. So I think a thank you from this party, this body, is well deserved for a number of reasons. So I echo that. In terms of just a little bit of betterment, I would suggest we change the words charges to articles of impeachment, which is what they were. But it wasn't just 16. They actually dismissed all 20. They acquitted of 16, and then they dismissed 4 more. On the next, or the penultimate resolve, I'd like to include a reference not only to Texas law. Oh, I'm so sorry, James.
Just do one.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. I'll wait for you.
Yeah, so the amendment here is to strike the word charges, replace it with articles of impeachment, and then add after the word trial before the semicolon, You want, and voted not to hear.
No, they actually dismissed.
Oh yeah, and voted to dismiss the other four articles of
Correct.
the other four articles of impeachment that were sent. Impeachment sent by the House of Representatives. Okay. When Virgil and I go over this later, we'll argue about that. Okay, is there any objection to this amendment? Hearing none, that's included. And which resolve clause did you want to amend?
The penultimate one. So that'd be next to last. Where we have Texas law, I would make a motion that we add, comma, the Texas and U.S. constitutions. And incidentally, just as a side note, the Texas Constitution actually has a direct reference to the right to be heard. Whereas the U.S. Constitution, you have to kind of glean that through about 12 or so bills, amendments. But thankfully, our Texas Constitution actually has the right to be heard. And that was at play throughout the entire trial. So I think it'd be fitting to include reference to the Texas and the U.S. constitutions.
All right. Is there any objection to including that? Hearing none, that's included.
And then lastly, what I heard from Lieutenant Governor Patrick was essentially, we don't want to see this kind of thing happening again. And there was a litany of things that went beyond requiring sworn testimony. He actually called for constitutional amendments to refine and define the entire process so that the kind of sham impeachment that we had wouldn't happen again. I referenced that. I don't have ready words to recall, but I hate to see us limit the remedy to requiring sworn testimony as opposed to implementing constitutionally protected measures, perhaps. I'm just thinking out loud to prevent.
So do you want to change the word? So for now, you could. Why don't we change the word specifically to especially, and that way it's not exclusive language. And then if between now and tomorrow you come up with a better list of things to include, we could amend it on the floor. Would you be okay with that?
That'd be fine. Thank you.
Okay. And is there any objection to this amendment? Hearing none, that will be included. And is there any further discussion on this resolution? Microphone. All right, Mr. Tully.
That's okay. SD 9, Dan Tully. All the other whereases, with the exception of one that Mr. Byrd just made, I'd like to make a motion to strike all of them, because when you take his whereas leading into the two resolves there, it really makes just a very simple, clean, and straightforward statement versus the rest of it. People are going to get lost in the weeds with it. Whereas the fewer words, they're very specific. And I think his language for that whereas clause, starting out what was going on, does a very good job of setting the stage for
So
the two
the
results.
motion would be if we scroll up to the whereas clauses.
From the title down to the all the whereases down to where Mr. Byrd made his last one there. There.
Yeah. So basically the resolution would start with whereas the Texas Senate.
Correct.
I'm never opposed to making our resolution shorter. All right. Is there any further discussion on this amendment? And I will point out too that a lot of the text that is in this resolution is also from the resolution that we passed at the previous meeting. Including some of it was in that resolution, and then it was incorporated into county resolutions, and now it came back to us that way. So any further thoughts about this amendment?
If I may, just from here, I do like the reference in the ordinance to due process. I feel like that's a good segue into the very next one.
Okay, so without objection, so is there any objection to adding back in? Yes. Yeah, so we would leave the final two whereas clauses. Is there any objection to allowing that to be the amendment? Hearing none, is there any objection to Mr. Tully's amended amendment that would strike the other three whereas clauses? Amended amendment. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not having a feeling moment. Amended amendment. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. Anyway, so I don't hear any objections, so we'll go ahead and strike those clauses. Any further discussion on this resolution? Hearing none, all in favor of passing this to the floor to be voted on, say aye. All opposed, say nay. That passes. And are there any other items of business for the Resolutions Committee?
Mr. Chairman, David Covey, SD3.
Yes.
I'm getting some text from my district, and folks are asking if we could just go back quickly and review the on the censure resolution for Dave Phelan and why that didn't come out of the subcommittee. Since I wasn't on that committee, I didn't exactly see why.
So the reason that basically our discussion was that the Orange County resolution did not speak to any of the events that happened between our last committee meeting and today. Specifically, it didn't speak to the Ken Paxton impeachment. And so if I think a new resolution might that did speak to that might be well taken, but because the actual charges in the Orange County resolution have not changed, and we were waiting on action from a special session that hasn't occurred yet in order to specifically look at a couple of those that could change during a special session. That's the reason why. So we have the same resolution. What we are waiting on to determine whether it's actionable has not happened yet. And so we're not acting on it now. However, there's always the possibility of having a virtual meeting between now and December where we could. Did that? So MER is passed out of the committee. That is going to happen in December. Orange County for Phelan has not been acted on by the committee.
I guess my concern is that we're to take each resolution on its face, and although there may be things that could be added in that make it even clearer, if the points are there, and we've seen county after county around the state concur with that resolution, and again, the Orange County that's the district that State Representative Phelan's in, so that's his constituents are saying that this is the case, then would it be possible for us as the committee to pass this still out to the body and let the body of the SREC decide?
So we voted on it at the last meeting, and the vote was not to pass it out. And the subcommittee did not feel it was time to, not enough has changed between then and now to justify revisiting that decision, according to the subcommittee. So. All right, Are there any further items of business?
Since I'm at the microphone, David Covey, SD3, I would like to make a motion to bring up a resolution that was submitted before the Tuesday deadline, and bring that before the body.
Okay, so your resolution is a support of the a resolution in support of the Orange County Republican Party resolution censuring Speaker Dade Phelan.
Correct.
All right, so yeah, can you pull up the resolution? Yeah, well, I can go ahead and read it. And so this is a State Republican Executive Committee resolution in support of the Orange County Republican Party resolution censuring Speaker Dade Phelan. Whereas on July 13th, 2023, the OC Republican Party Executive Committee met and voted on a resolution to censure Speaker Dade Phelan. The vote was 14 yeas, 16 nays, therefore a number greater than 2/3 of the vote cast. Yeah, whereas State Rep Dade Phelan, as Speaker of the Texas House, has abused the power of his office and his authority as Speaker by taking more than 3 actions during this current biennium that are either in opposition to the core principles of the Republican Party of Texas, in opposition to the Republican Party of Texas legislative priorities, or both. Whereas these violations of the Republican Party core principles and legislative priorities are documented facts and approved by the overwhelming majority of precinct chairs, largest whole county in Speaker Dade Phelan's own House District 21. Whereas county Republican executive committees all around the state of Texas are passing resolutions in support of the facts and findings of Orange County's censure resolution. Therefore, be it resolved that the State Republican Executive Committee supports and concurs with the necessary action taken by the Orange County Republican Party Executive Committee, and hereby applaud the bold stance of the Orange County Republican Party Executive Committee to seek the censure of Speaker Dade Phelan for blatant violations of Republican principles and priorities.
If I may speak to that, Mr. Chairman. So this resolution is not a censure. This is a plain, simple resolution, but the constituents in House District 21 of Speaker Phelan put hundreds and hundreds of hours into crafting a resolution, into getting the votes, into making the notice requirements happen. And although we may not move this forward like the Murr censure, I think that it is worth taking the time to say that we see the work they've done. And I think, at our last committee, we agreed that at least 3 of the points were correct, as was pointed out in our meeting. And so ours is not to politic and say why we should do it or why we shouldn't do it because of what will happen. But we at least need to recognize that there are Republicans around the state who are looking to us today to take action and say, we recognize that Speaker Phelan has not represented us. And if his constituents say it, then certainly we can echo them. And again, obviously we're not able to meet the 14-day notice of the requirement and do an official censure, but we can still pass a simple resolution acknowledging their work. And obviously Harris County has passed a resolution in support of this. Dallas County has passed a resolution in support of this, and many other counties around the state. And so I think it would be fitting for our body to recognize the voice of the grassroots and to give them a voice as they are saying these things. And so I would support this.
All right. Is there any further discussion?
Yes. Okay, this is too clever by half. This is an attempt at a censure without having to meet the censure requirements. Now, you were there. We all talked at our last committee meeting. We all hashed out the Phelan censure, and the majority of the committee felt that based on the information we have, we did not feel comfortable moving forward with three Rule 44 violations. Nothing has happened to change that. So the facts haven't changed. And I feel like proposing this resolution is a backdoor way to accomplish what the committee was not ready to do at our last meeting. People put in a lot of work to this. We need to acknowledge the grassroots and take those concerns seriously. And we did, and we will. This issue is not dead. But to vote for this is, in effect, to vote for a censure, which, again, the committee was not ready to do. And honestly, those hundreds of hours spent doing this would have been better spent block walking for you.
So I want to pull 2 points there. And I guess the first one is, you said that we weren't ready to move on these three items, but it's true that the rule only requires 3. So it's not for us to say that we need more than 3 if the rule only requires 3 violations. And that's what the resolution does.
Okay. Well, I've got a point of order here, Mr. Chair. With David making this motion, bring this back forward, and him talking, this is something that directly is going to affect his campaign. We can try to sugarcoat it any way we want to, but it's directly going to affect his campaign. I think he should recuse himself from this matter.
Can I have an opinion from the parliamentarian on that? All right. The parliamentarian is advised that that's probably correct. I think that is well taken. I would say we have we have already had votes involving Mr. Phelan, where anything regarding an actual censure or the election in House District 21 is concerned. I do think it would be proper for candidates in that election not to vote in matters involving it. I think the speakership is something separate, but when it comes to the actual election and essentially what Rule 44 asks the party to do is get involved and spend money in a primary election. Just
to clarify, because this is not an actual censure resolution, so this would not require the party to spend funds. But since Mr. Weisenbaker brought my name into this, yes, this is something I'm heavily vested in and I will use any platform that the constituents in House District 21 or Senate District 3 give me to speak the truth and represent their values. And so I'm not backing down just because I'm on the ballot. I'm not doing this because I'm running. I'm running because Dave Phelan has done this. And so he deserves the consequences. And if we can censure Murr, we certainly have enough information to censor Speaker Phelan. But this resolution doesn't do that. All this does is acknowledge to the grassroots around the state that we hear their voice and that we are listening and we agree with what they're saying.
Vice Chair Byrd.
Mr. Chair, I really just have a point of order and a question as well. While I appreciate the comments made from you, Donnie, and your comments as well, Mr. Chair, those are your sentiments only. And the notion of recusal would either have to be voluntary by Mr. Covey, which would more or less be an invitation to, and he could decline, or I'm not hearing any kind of a motion to recuse David Covey. So are we to take your comments as just complimentary?
I would say, I mean, my comments, if I don't have the ability to force a recusal in a committee meeting, then I don't have it. So yeah, I can't stop him from voting now.
Right. Thank you.
All right. Is there any further discussion on this resolution? Mr. Tully? No.
Dan Tully, SD9. I think this motion is totally out of order because this requires us to recognize something that this body has not done any positive action from the standpoint we set it off until December when we get what we're going to do. Let's do the December, and if that passes, as some people expect, then this support should also be part of that same package of support at that time. This is just kind of premature from my perspective right now. I mean, not getting into the technical side of it, but it's like getting the cart, before the horse. Let's do the deal with Phelan in December, and let's table this until that issue is resolved in December.
Is that a motion to table?
Motion to table till December.
Virgil is desperately saying postpone instead of is that a motion to postpone? Okay. Motion has been made to postpone this resolution. Is there a second? All right, that's been seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of postponing, say aye. All opposed, say nay. Nay. All right, that was 3-3. So yes. Division. Okay. All right. All in favor of postponing, raise your hands. All right. That's 3. Yeah. All right. All opposed. All right. That's 4. 5. So we will not postpone. All right. It was 5. Okay. So I guess my opinion on this, and I may just end up outvoted, a couple of things worth thinking about. One is, do you really want to send first of all, we already have a main motion being considered by the committee that has been deferred that would accomplish what this resolution is trying to accomplish. So I'm not really even sure it's out of order or it's in order. I'm also not sure it would survive a point of order on the floor. The second concern I have is that we're using the word concur. And that is language that is specifically in Rule 44 that allows the SREC to take action. And so if we're concurring, then not agreeing, not giving a yes, we're concurring, then we are essentially doing a Rule 44 action, which means we are under Rule 44 obligations, specifically the notice requirement. So those are my concerns. I'm not sure this would survive a point of order on the floor. And I also think, I agree that this is a little bit too cute. It's trying to have our cake and eat it too. It's trying to get around the fact that we don't really have 3 solid grounds for censuring the speaker that have been identified by Orange County. We have 2, and we have a 3rd one that's questionable. That could change depending on the special session, which hasn't occurred yet, which was the entire reason the committee voted to defer action on that in the first place. So I'm not comfortable moving forward with this one. And if it goes to the floor in the SREC, then it will be a vote. I think it will be interpreted as a vote on the censure, just with no consequences. But it would be very bad if that failed. And so I think it is not a good idea to send this out the way it is.
And I would also add, we supports and concurs with with what Orange County did. At this point, I do not concur, okay? For all the reasons that we talked about at the meeting, namely that we are going to censure him, or we're going to concur with Orange County censuring him for killing school choice when there is a special session next month, okay? And this is, okay, in other words, we have people here who are more concerned about the political impact of getting Dade Phelan than they are about passing the policy, about passing our priority, okay? That's what's happening. How can we censure Dade Phelan for killing school choice when there's a special session coming up in October? Now, he may kill it in October. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. But this is premature. And again, as you said, we are voting for censure. When we vote to concur, we're basically saying we support the censure charges, and I don't see how we can do that. I don't understand the rush. I don't understand the rush to get this done. I feel like we're being driven on this by other people's political timelines and not on a strictly Rule 44 approach, which looks for violations of principles and priorities. So I would vote against this in committee. I would vote against it on the floor. I would vote at this point against a censure. And I don't understand the need to force this issue now. I think in our December meeting, we're going to know a lot more. And I think that would be a better time to act if action is necessary. But I'm sorry, this body is not going to move according to a candidate's fundraising needs, okay?
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah,
I
say
do
your
have a
point.
comment.
Yes.
To me, what I'm hearing is we have a couple of folks who do not like the word support and concurs because you're assuming it's a Rule 44 if we say those words. So I'd like to move that we just strike support and concurs, instead say committee agrees with. If you're hung up on that kind of language, then
And it's in the resolve clause, and then I think it's also in the
well, then
title.
you strike it and you do it in both. Yeah. Supports and concurs, just change to agrees. Yeah, I'm looking for a second there, Mr. Byrd.
All right, that motion has been made, and it is second. Is there any objection to it? All right, I'm hearing none, so we'll go ahead and make that change. Guys, I think this is a terrible idea. So, yeah, well, I'm a member of the committee too, and so I mean, I'm just telling you. Okay. So, anyway, is there any further discussion on this motion? Yeah. I think you were rushing into something that is not going to turn out the way you think it will, and it's going to. And it's going to, yeah, ultimately not be productive. But if you're, I mean, if you're absolutely determined, then we'll have our vote. So is there any further discussion? All right, hearing none. All in favor of passing this resolution to the floor, say aye. All right, we'll have a vote by hands. Raise your hand. All right, that is 4. All opposed, raise your hand. All right, that's 4. So it fails, 4-4. Yes. It can be. I mean, I remember who voted for it. So I guess we can let the minutes show. Yeah, but right now the result is 4-4, which would not pass. So are there any further items of business for this committee? All right, hearing none, we're adjourned. Thank you.